Good to see you all. Welcome to the first in a four-part series on understanding evolution. I do encourage questions at any time. If you have something that you're curious about, you disagree with, whatever, say Steve, raise your hand, whatever, get my attention. We'd be happy to discuss it. We're all here to learn. When we think of evolution, we pretty much think of this man here, Charles Darwin. In 1859, he published his book on the origin of species by means of natural selection. In 1831 is when this journey really started. Evolution occurs by means of natural selection. Now, natural selection is another one of those foreign words or foreign concepts that might not resonate with you, so let's try to make that clear as well. What is natural selection? To understand natural selection, I want to first look at artificial selection, because you're all going to get this, and it's going to make complete sense. The wolf is the originator of every dog breed that we see on planet Earth today, of which there are over 300, almost 400 different dog breeds. Dogs today come in many shapes and sizes. But artificial selection is when we artificially determine this is what we want to see happen. So if we were to take a German Shepherd and we were to breed the German Shepherd with a Beagle, that cross-pollination of genes is going to produce something different. It's not going to be a German Shepherd, it's not going to be a Beagle, but it's going to be an amalgam of those two. So are these animals a different species, or are they the same species? I need to hear an answer.
Same.
They're the same? Any dissents?
Different.
Maybe a few that say no? Let's take a look. The definition of a species is if two creatures, even though they're similar, if they can breed and have offspring, and if their offspring are fertile, in other words, they can reproduce, they're the same species. Here's two similar animals. We have a lion and a tiger. Can a lion and a tiger reproduce and have a baby?
No. Yes.
No. Yes. Strong opinions on both sides. This is good. Guess what? The answer is yes.
Liger.
A liger. Who can tell me? I'll just tell you. Napoleon Dynamite's favorite animal is a liger. A little bit of trivia there. And a liger is a real animal. This is the result of the mating of a lion and a tiger, but the liger is infertile. Therefore, the lion and the tiger are different species by that definition. Here's two similar animals again, a horse and a donkey. There you go. There's the answer already. When they mate, they're going to have a mule. Is a mule fertile? No. So a horse and a donkey are different species. So we're beginning to pick up some speed here as to understanding what these various concepts are. Who is more likely to survive? Lion? What? Shout it out. It's hard to hear down here. The what? The scorpion? What else? Oh, what was that question? Who says that is exactly the question that I wanted to have raised, is how can we answer this question without knowing the environment in which they're placed, right? Super, super important. So here's an environment, and we can look at this environment and very quickly analyze that the fish is going to do exceptionally well in this environment. The polar bear, the cat, the cobra, even the frog, they're just not going to make it. So who is most fit for that environment? It doesn't have anything to do with speed or strength or claws or intelligence. It has to do with who is most fit for that particular environment. How about this environment? Yeah, scorpion's going to do pretty darn well. Maybe the cobra, possibly the hawk if there was an oasis nearby. The fish, who was the winner in the last environment, He's the first to perish, certainly here. Polar bear, yeah, polar bear is an obvious there. Notice the adaptation of the white fur, not by chance, folks. You'll understand this momentarily, that the polar bear has adapted and evolved over eons to have white fur. Why? Yeah, he's a predator, right? So if he wants to have a meal of a seal or whatever his prey is, the more he blends in with his environment, the greater that possibility is. So the cobra, being cold-blooded, not going to last very long. In fact, hardly any of these would do very well in that environment, with the exception of the polar bear. Here we see an element where the frog would do well, the hawk maybe, and everything else I think would have a pretty tough time. Now we're in the savannah. The lion's going to dominate. This is their playground. No surprise. That's where we see lions, is on the savannah. There was a vast desert once upon a time, and it was covered in sand. And you can't see it there, but there's a colony of mice that lives in this desert. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger so that you can see where they are. And they try to stay hidden and under wraps because there are animals that want to eat them. They're kind of the Snickers bar of the Sahara. The desert is a very hot place, kind of a hostile place. There's very little water, very little food. And two of the mice in the colony discover this oasis nearby. And so they scurry back and they tell the rest of the colony, hey, there's this wonderful oasis and there appears to be a lot of water and food. This looks like a lot better place for us to try to live in. So here's that colony of mice, and it's a very diverse colony. And we have mice of white fur and gray fur and black fur and just about everything in between. And so they migrate to that oasis. Now I need 3 volunteers for an experiment. This is going to take like a minute and a half. But I need 3 brave souls who will come up here and help me with a test. There we are, man. Thank you. Come on up. Okay, there's one. Sir, thank you. Come on up. And back there, if you'd like to come, you're welcome to do so. Okay, so I'm going to give you a task, and that is get as close as you want to this photo, and I want you to count as many mice as you can see. Take about 10 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. Take as much time as you need. And those of you who are sitting farther away, I want you to try to do the same thing. I realize that you're much further away, so it's a lot more difficult. But try to see how many you can see as well. All right, you're done? And are we all done? Okay, what was the number you came up with? 13? 26? 14 to 15. Okay. So let's see how many mice are really in our photo here. We're going to make them large. Already a few. Maybe it materialized that you didn't see were there. So in actuality, there were 24 mice at our oasis. So you, ma'am, you said 13. So why do you think you missed a few mice?
I have vision problems.
You have vision problems. That is a great reason. How about you, sir?
All the dark ones blended in too good.
All the dark ones blended in pretty good. Now, you, sir, you saw 26 and there were 24. So have you been to the bar before? You should have worn your glasses. All right. So this young man made an observation that he saw, I think, 14 or 15 or 13.
There are 10 dark ones there.
There are 10 dark ones and they were hard to see. Do you think that it would be equally hard for a predator to see them versus the lighter ones?
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you, folks. You have performed exceptionally well. So what happens in the real world is not artificial selection, but it's natural selection. What is natural selection? Animals that are most fit for their environment tend to survive. Animals that are lesser fit for their environment tend to be extracted from the gene pool. So we're now going to take a look at what happens through natural selection. Different predators would begin to come in and prey upon our inhabitants of this colony. And so what we're noticing is that observation of the darker fur color blending in more with the black volcanic rock that we see there was definitely an advantage. Now that dark fur color comes through that term we learned of modification. We know that maybe your children or you've seen other children that one child might have blonde hair, another child might have much darker hair or something in between. Hair color variation is very much of an inherited trait. Okay, so we've had a lot of predation on our colony here, and we come back to those two terms, descent with modification, randomly changes traits like fur color in a mouse. Natural selection is the process by which the most fit for that environment is likely to survive. If they survive, what do they get to do? They get to pass on those genetic traits of darker fur to their offspring. And therefore the next generation of mice will likely have darker fur. Yes, question back there.